So, yeah. So, okay, wait. So you live on a farm? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so you mean you've never heard of Ocala, Florida?
No, never.
Oh yeah, that's yeah, most people say that. I never heard of it either. So my wife is actually super into horse racing.
Okay.
She's a barrel racer,
Yeah.
so we have a horse,
Wow.
and we used to live in Pennsylvania. She grew up with a horse her whole life. I didn't know normal people owned horses. I
Yeah.
thought it was like, for the the rich and famous. But I met her and she has a horse, and where she goes, the horse goes. So her horse trainer moved to Florida, and we have always talked about moving to Florida because the weather up north is just like horrible a
Yeah.
lot of the times. But yeah, we found out that Ocala is actually the horse capital of the world. Like 80% of the Kentucky Derby horses come either are born in Ocala or train out of Ocala, and it's kind of a really cool area, but not a lot of places with internet.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said that, when you said your internet's not great, it reminded me of like what, because I've been in Costa Rica since February. Like I got
Yeah,
here right before the borders shut down.
I know.
Yeah. So then the internet here has been, it's at the beginning was horrible. Like you might get a connection and yeah. So that, but we got this box thing. I don't even know what it is, but it allows us to have better internet. But I can totally
Whatever
relate to
works.
having no internet.
God bless the box thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So does your mom live there?
Yeah, she moved down here 4 years ago.
Okay, see,
Yeah.
I was under the assumption that you like went there for a trip by
Oh,
yourself and you were just like stuck there and you
yeah.
couldn't get back. So okay, I'm glad you at least have.
Yeah, that would have been crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily because it hasn't been so bad since she lives here and it's actually been a really special time just to hang out.
Mm,
But I
I
have
can imagine.
I have a flight back next week actually.
And is it going to get canceled or is it actually going to
I,
happen?
I don't know. I booked with a different airline, so we'll see. Well, I
Yeah.
think I have a feeling it's gonna go.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you live in LA,
I
correct?
do. Yeah, so I'm basically flying back to a city that's on fire.
In
Right.
more ways than one,
Yes,
yes.
yeah. How is it in Florida
As
with
far
everything?
as
Just COVID and
so
the world.
Florida, it is it's an interesting state.
Yeah.
So at first it kind of seemed like I mean we were taking it seriously, but not really. Like people were kind of just doing whatever.
Hmm.
And it seemed like the rest of the country was like super strict with masks and businesses shutting down. Florida was just, hey, do your own thing. We'll figure it out. It wasn't really until I want to say June where like everywhere was requiring you to wear masks. So like you could just walk into a Walmart or grocery store and it didn't matter. But then in like Orlando, Tampa, areas like that, it was super strict. But
Okay.
in Ocala, there's a lot of conservative individuals in this area
Yeah.
that are, for some reason, anti-maskers. So,
Really?
oh yeah,
That's so interesting.
what's
Huh.
that?
That's so interesting. I'm sure you have the like
Yeah.
people like that everywhere though, even here.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
So do you guys have like is it just your wife's horse that's on the farm or do you have other animals?
So we have her horse, and we actually rent the farm. We have
Okay.
her horse. The owner, she has two horses there.
Hmm.
We have my pit bull. She's
Okay.
12 years old.
Aw.
It's just like an old little fat lady
Yeah.
walking around.
Aw.
And there are two cats, and we have a cat too. So
Okay.
there's animals running all over the place, and
Yeah.
there's cows in the field next to us. It's typical farm that you would picture.
Yeah, that's so cool. I grew
It's
up on a farm when I was younger, like before my parents divorced. So it
okay.
was between
In,
like
Cal- in
it was
California?
actually in Canada, but it was we rented it. It was on one side it was like a cattle farm
Mhm.
and then the other side was a dairy farm. So it was like right in the middle.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, farm life is definitely different, that's for sure.
It totally is. Do you think you guys will stay there?
We really like it, but we're gypsies.
Yeah.
we get bored pretty easy. We like to move around, and that's kind of why I got the federal gig to begin with.
Yeah.
I was pretty happy working for the state, but the federal option kind of gives me the um, freedom to be like, oh, if I wanted to go here, I can go here. It basically what got me to Florida, but we
That's
really like it
awesome.
here. I think we're going to be here for at least another couple years, but who knows what
Yeah.
life will bring here.
Yeah,
So
you
we'll
never
see.
know, right? This year has
Hmm.
kind of just proved that anything's possible.
Yeah, and I'm open to whatever. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
new
cool.
experiences are good.
Yeah. So with your job, because when you sent me that email yesterday, I was like, oh my God, there's so much that I want to ask you. Like, so you probably have so many
Ask
stories.
away.
So you were living in Pittsburgh. Is that where you're from?
Yeah, I'm from
Okay.
Pittsburgh originally. I'm actually from Johnstown. It's a small community about an hour and a half outside of Pittsburgh. But then once I graduated college, I lived in Pittsburgh. So,
Okay. And then
hmm
how many years have you been working for like law enforcement?
so I started officially in law enforcement in 2011. Prior to that, I was a youth counselor.
Okay.
I actually just I wanted to get my master's in counseling
Oh wow.
and be a certified counselor. But I was working at the Salvation Army in
Uh-huh.
the north side of Pittsburgh, which at the time was the most dangerous area in Pittsburgh, like notorious Crip area, G's all over the place. And I was working with these kids. And I grew up in white suburbia, so I was like terrified of middle school kids.
Yeah.
So I'm like trying to help these kids, and I didn't know anything about them. And once I got to know them a lot more, um, I just kind of fell in love with them, and it led me in a direction towards juvenile probation because I liked working with kind of the worst of the worst.
Hmm.
So that's kind of fell into law enforcement. Didn't necessarily want to do it from the beginning, but yeah, I really enjoy it for
Yeah,
sure.
that's so cool. Do you think just from like looking back on that time, are a lot of those kids, is it just how they were raised? Like, is it their upbringing, do you think
Oh
mostly?
my gosh. There's a lot that goes into it for sure. Now, when the kids that I worked with, especially when I started with probation, they were the highest risk population that you work with. So the success rate was very, very low.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you figure I'm a pastor's kid. My mom is a social worker. Look what I do. I help people.
Yeah.
The kids that I worked with, like their dads were drug dealers if they were around. Um, their moms, most of them didn't work. A lot of them were on drugs. So what do? Um, Kind of what their parents do.
Mm-hmm.
So it was sad because a lot of them you just feel like they don't have a chance, and you do the best that you can with them. But yeah, unfortunately, the success rate was really low.
That's so, and I'm sure you just wanted to help all of them, like, because
Oh my
it's
gosh,
like you
yeah.
can see a better way from like your upbringing, and it's like they probably have they can't even fathom that, right?
Why it's so funny that you bring that up because when I worked at the Salvation Army, these kids I was seeing at the Salvation Army, they weren't the highest risk ones, but a lot of them had never been out of their community. Like
Oh.
they've been in Pittsburgh, they've never seen like a lake or woods or anything like that. So where I was living at the time, I was living about 45 minutes outside of Pittsburgh, and I had all woods in my backyard, trails all over the place. I was like, you know what? Let's have like a youth night. We'll have a camp out. So I brought these kids, and mind you, most dangerous section in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. I bring them here, and they are freaking terrified of the woods behind my house. They think a bear's going to come out and eat them. They think the deer's going to attack them. And I'm just laughing my ass off because I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You're from like Northview Heights and you're afraid of this. And that morning, I drove them all back, and the gated project that we had to go into, there were cop cars flying in, and I was like, "Oh man, maybe I shouldn't, drive the van in here right now." And the kid was like, "Oh, it's probably just a shooting. It's not a big deal." And I dropped him off. He was the last kid. I dropped him off, and I like cried the whole way home because
Yeah.
I was like, I cannot believe that this kid, like, he's living in such a terrible circumstance like that.
Yeah, and it's like his normal.
Yeah,
That's so
yeah,
nuts.
yeah. You're growing up in just constant fear.
Yeah, I
and
can't
you don't
even
even know it.
imagine.
No, no, definitely not.
So, and then what made you decide to like move out of that part of your job, like your career?
So I was doing the high risk gang members for a
Mm-hmm.
while, and then there was an opportunity to work with juvenile sex offenders, and it was considered a promotion because you're a specialist at that point. And then the office that it was in, there were a lot of really cool people there that I wanted to work with. And there were two guys, their main job was just serving warrants. Mink and Willig were their names.
Yeah.
And it was kind of nice to be next to them because they were just cracking jokes all day. And so that was one of the reasons. And then I was on the warrant task force as well. So it was nice working next to those guys because they would take me out on like other special stuff too, where if there was a big event in Pittsburgh, like light up night for Christmas or something, I was one of the undercover guys walking around making sure everything stayed cool. So I got to do a lot of extra stuff with
Yeah.
that.
That's
So
cool.
yeah,
That's fun.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's crazy. And like, how have things changed since, like, I feel, well, where I am in the world, I feel like I've been isolated so much. Whereas, like, every time I look at the news, it's like the States is just something's happening, right? But you
Yeah.
guys must be kind of under more pressure or like,
So, hmm. I kind of figured we were going to talk about
yeah.
this a little bit because I know that you're isolated there and you don't really know what's actually happening.
Yeah.
So I think for me, because I have worked in such dangerous areas where law enforcement has never really been liked,
Hmm.
um, nothing's really changed.
Okay.
As a probation officer, you're in a unique position where you actually work with these individuals and you formulate relationships with them. So if
Hmm.
you have a good relationship with them, then they're going to look at you with respect, even if the rest of the community doesn't. So there's been circumstances where I was on Charles Street, it's a notorious Crip area, and I'd go in and I'd talk to the guy, and I walked out one time and my car was surrounded. And the guy was like shouting out his door, "That's my PO, man! Get the F away from his car!" And then he walked me out. So it's like, it's almost like they were protecting me because
Yeah.
I know them. But say I was just trying to flaunt my badge or be one of those tool bags that just
Hmm.
walks around like a tough guy, that would definitely not be looked at in a positive light. But as far as like people, like if I'm stopping at gas and they notice my badge, like I get looked at bad or something like that. But then you have a lot of people that are like, "Hey, thank you for your service. Your coffee's on us." Just
Yeah.
things like that. So I know the media is really upplaying it a
Yeah.
lot because it's a really hot issue right now. But for me, it just seems like everything is everything.
Yeah. That makes sense. Do you
Yeah.
think, like, do you think there'll be more funding after all of this put into law enforcement?
Oh
That would be the
man, more
hope, right?
funding. See, everybody's asking for less funding.
I know, but
At least that's all you hear. I'm really hoping that they do put more funding into it. I train officers
mhm.
in firearms and self-defense here on the federal end of things. And what I see a lot of times is that firearms training is pretty much the end all be all, and there's not as much training on the martial arts side of things, if you
Yeah.
want to put it that way, or self defense. I'm more of the more able you are to handle yourself physically without using a firearm, the less likely you are to use that firearm.
Mhm.
So it's my opinion. I think officers should be training jujitsu or some kind of self defense or MMA at least twice a week. And that's maybe on their own time. But then there needs to be more money pumped into training officers in different scenario based situations, cultural awareness. I think they should be training at least one day a week.
Yeah.
Where now we're lucky, especially with COVID, we're lucky if we're training um, 4 times a year in firearms and self defense. So
That's crazy. Cuz yeah,
yeah,
that would make total sense if everyone was, cuz it's probably such a like mental thing too, right? Cuz you guys are put into such like crazy situations that you have to have that
Yeah.
like mental stability just as much as the physical.
Oh, for
I would
sure.
think.
And you don't really know how you're going to react in a situation unless you practice it over and over and over and over. So we'll put together scenario trainings
Hmm.
where, I mean, the officers, you're going into this training, you're knowing nothing bad is going to happen to you. But they freak out, and you'll just be standing there with a cooking knife, and you'll be, just cutting up some steak, and they'll be like, "Hey, drop the knife," and you're like, "Dude, I'm just cooking." And next thing you know, they're lighting you up with some fake bullets,
Oh my
and
God.
you're like, "Okay, let's talk about why this was bad."
Yeah.
But there needs to be, so that being said, and that's worst case
Yeah.
training situation. Most of them do great, but you don't really know how it's going to be unless you practice, 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 practice.
Yeah.
And a lot of law enforcement agencies just don't get that.
Yeah. So there needs to be more funding for sure.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you completely.
Yeah. So
100%.
you do jujitsu and you do.
I do Krav Maga.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
I know what it is. When I used to work in post production, the girl I worked with, her husband was a Krav Maga trainer. So I know
Oh,
about it, but I've
nice.
never done it.
Yeah, so it's an Israeli fighting style.
Yeah.
It's pretty much what their troops are trained in and all their law enforcement officers. And it incorporates everything. It's basically like dirty MMA.
Okay.
So you're going to get Muay Thai, you're going to get your jiu-jitsu, whether it's Brazilian, Japanese, whatever type of jiu-jitsu it is. You're going to get boxing, a little bit of everything, plus some. So
That's
it's a
awesome.
lot of like weapon disarms and knife disarms and a lot of things that other traditional martial arts don't do.
Okay. So yeah, that would be. Do all, I guess, does it, the police or the law enforcement per state, do they have different requirements in terms of training techniques? Like, does
Yeah, and
everyone?
I can't say I am an expert at knowing what other agencies do. Um, I know for probation, for United States probation, it varies from district to district. Um, Ours, I believe it's only one self-defense session a year and two
Wow.
firearms plus a qualification. So it's not as much. But that being said, we're not first responders.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're just working with the dangerous individuals, but usually we have that rapport with them. But still, I feel like there should be a lot more training on my end. And then I've talked to some state troopers, and they're barely training.
Wow.
I mean, it's just, and when it is training, it's all firearms.
Yeah.
If you look at the recent one in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
where the guy was shot in the back after discharging the officer's taser at him, did you watch that video?
I didn't watch that one, and I didn't even watch. I haven't watched any of them, to be honest. I've just
Okay,
heard
yeah.
about them, and I
So
was like, I don't want to watch, but I get
yeah,
it.
there's just certain situations where they were wrestling with. Long story short, they were wrestling with a guy, and if I'm, shoulder to shoulder away from somebody, I'm not gonna pull out a taser to introduce a weapon into a fight. I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to use my hands. What he did is it's almost like that officer introduced a weapon that somebody could grab very easily, and then it just kind of escalated, escalated, escalated. So if the officer was trained appropriately and he was comfortable with his hands and say he was training in jiu-jitsu all the time, that might have just been de-escalated
Yeah.
immediately rather than it raising to the level of lethal force.
Yeah. It's and it's probably because you have so much training, like seeing certain situations like that. It's like you
Ugh,
can probably see exactly where they just need to tweak something so it doesn't happen.
yeah, yeah, yep, for
Yeah.
sure.
That's crazy. And then you want to be in the Marines, right? At the beginning of all this?
I
Was
did.
was this
Yeah, so
before you were working at the in Pittsburgh at
well,
Salvation?
I wanted to be a Marine since I popped out. I
Okay.
mean, I wanted to be in the military my whole life. Like my pap was in the Navy in World War II, and I wanted to be a Marine because I thought they were the like most badass ones to be. But then I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 9, and they were like, oh, the doctors and everybody's like, you can pretty much do everything except join the military. And I was like, that's what I want to
Well,
do.
And I'm sure so many people can relate to that. Like, so what
I'm
did you do?
sure.
Were you like completely crushed?
I remember when the recruiters were at the high school. Um, I felt so uncomfortable just walking by them because I knew like I wanted to serve my country and I thought that was the best way that I could do that. So they would, they're trying to recruit people and bring them in. And I would just sometimes look at them and be like, do you guys take diabetics? Because I can just end this conversation right away. So I don't even have to deal with it because I knew it would just upset me.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, I would really just love to do it, but there's no way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then after, so then were you just doing other jobs and then the law enforcement kind of fell into your lap? Like,
So I went to college.
okay.
I went to Geneva College for a 4-year degree in human services. And while I was there, I actually did an internship in probation, but I
Mhm.
still wanted to just be a counselor. And it was kind of like, it wasn't forced on me per se, but I thought like I needed a job with good benefits.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to help people. So I was like, well, I want to stay alive so I can have insulin.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get this degree so I can get a job that has benefits and healthcare. And I kind of limited to myself to that. So yeah, I just didn't have the wherewithal until later to really be able to put that all together that I was actually limiting myself with my diabetes and not even knowing it.
Yeah. That's crazy because you were diagnosed when you were 9. I was diagnosed when I was 9.
Okay.
So,
All right. So yeah, very similar
yeah,
situation.
I guess it's not easy at any age, but did you
No.
find 9 years old being challenging?
There was a diabetic girl in my class. I didn't
Oh,
even know she had diabetes. There was a class of like 25 of us, so the odds are pretty rare
yeah.
that you would have that. So I had that right away. I was always a pretty positive kid, and I just remember being in the children's hospital in Pittsburgh, and I was just happy to play Super Nintendo for a week. Like the
Yeah.
IVs and stuff didn't really bother me. I was just like, oh, I get to play video games and have a good time. So um, I it didn't really affect me too
Yeah.
much. I mean, every once in a while you had like some mean kids that would like shove cupcakes in your face and um, do like random stuff like that, but otherwise it was pretty good.
Yeah.
What
Did
about you?
I it was challenging, I think mostly because I grew up on a farm. I was homeschooled, so my upbringing was very just it was different, I guess. Like
Mm,
so I didn't even go to a doctor. Like my parents did homeopathic. We ate like from the garden. It was just very rural living. So when
yeah.
I got diagnosed, I had never been in a hospital before or seen a doctor for anything.
Oh
So
my
it was kind of
gosh.
like a shock for me.
Yeah, and I'm sure your family was like super healthy if
Oh
you were eating
yeah,
like that. And
very healthy.
yeah.
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 So,
That's the thing too, like when people are like, "Oh, well, you must have been eating so bad and doing this." It's like, "No, I was playing soccer and I was active and, healthy and then all of a sudden I wasn't."
yeah, did the doctors say why they thought that you might have been diagnosed?
They weren't really sure. I have a general idea. I grew up on a farm, like farm area till I was about 8. And then as soon as I turned 9, we moved to another area. And it was just I think the subconscious stress is what got to me,
Hmm.
and that was kind of like the triggering mechanism because you're meeting all new people, new neighborhood, new everything, and I think that's what was the trigger to cause it, but I don't really know. That's just my
Yeah. It
my
makes
idiotic
sense.
theory.
It makes sense. I think intuitively, like people probably have an idea.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. You know your body
Yeah.
uh, better than other people, especially being a type one.
Yes,
I feel like so.
exactly. What
Yeah.
was so when you started getting into law enforcement, what was it like for the training for being type 1? Like did you run into any challenges in that sense?
Yeah, I got a job, and I was only there for a week. Schumann Juvenile Detention Center,
Okay.
and I have no problem throwing them under the bus because I was there for 2 days, and one of them saw me check my blood sugar, and they pulled me into, like, I was in training mode, and they pulled me into their nurse's office, and the boss was there, and the HR rep, and they're like, well, why didn't you tell us you were a type 1 diabetic? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, HIPAA says I don't have to. And kind of was going back and forth. And as soon as we were going back and forth, and then when I broke out the HIPAA thing, they were like, oh, crap. And then the next day I came back, and they were like, yeah, we were thinking that, every once in a blue moon we get type 1 diabetic kids in here, and you'd be a really big asset. And I was like, you know what, you can shove it, like, you're so full of crap. And I was like, I'm done Friday. And I ended up getting a job the Thursday before I quit for that high risk juvenile probation program.
Wow. That's
but
crazy.
Otherwise it was super cool. Joining the warrant team was definitely that was a challenge at first, because you have to wake up at 3:30 in the morning. It's definitely off schedule. You don't know how many houses you're hitting. So on a given, that morning, we start serving warrants at 4:30 in the morning, and these are super dangerous arrest warrants. So your heart's already pumping. I was super scared.
Okay. I was going to ask him, like
the crazy thing is, it's been scientifically proven that when a law enforcement officer, the average law enforcement officer, straps their gun on in the morning, their heart rate goes up 10 beats a minute. And that's without being in a situation. All you're doing is putting your gun belt on. So when you're going into a situation where you're going to be serving warrants, where guns are getting raised at you, and there's drugs in the house, and you're in the most dangerous area, your blood sugar is probably going to be spiked a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was, I think my blood sugar was probably like always between 200 and 250 the first couple times I went out, until I figured out what I had to do.
What did you find? Like, because we're using a pump then, or?
What was I using then?
Because you've kind of used everything.
Yeah, I was on a pump. Okay. I did not have a sensor though.
No. Was this before the sensors were?
Yeah, it was before they were worth having.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what I figured out eventually, it was just the breakfast that I ate. I used to kind of like, everybody else was carving up and getting ready for it. So like I would be like, oh, maybe that's what I'll do. No, bad choice.
Yeah.
So I really wouldn't eat hardly anything. I would have like 3 eggs, and then I'd be good just running off the adrenaline. And then we were usually done around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I would have my big meal.
Okay.
But I would try to just limit any kind of insulin doses at all. So I would just eat protein, not give anything for it, and then just rock out, usually around like 150 is where I like to stay when I was serving the warrants, because I did not want to go low.
No. Yeah, I was going to ask you, have you ever had a low in the middle of a
No.
Okay, good. Thank God. You're like super careful.
No, thankfully. Yeah, now like day to day, for home visits that I do, I've gone low like in the middle of a home visit. And I'll just, you can play it casual, be like, hey, excuse me, I got to run out to my car. And then I'll just sit in there for a couple of minutes and pretend I'm on the phone. But otherwise, no, it's pretty well controlled.
Yeah, that's good. I guess it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I can't hear you as well.
Oh, can you hear me now?
There we go. Talking with.
I wonder if it was my end. Is it my end?
Yeah, it just like faded away all of a sudden.
That's so
all
weird.
Right, I turned you up. You're good.
Okay, good. Yeah. So did you find? So wait, are you on injections right now? Because you said
I am.
What made you decide to switch?
When I moved so I did injections, and then I was on a pump. And then I tried the Omnipod, but that's when it was like big and it was always failing. I was always getting like, I'd walk through the door and hit it on the door frame and it would pop off. And I was just like so sick of it. And then I was on a pump when I first got my job with the feds. But when I moved to Florida, I was just so sweaty all the time and doing so many different dynamic activities that my pump sites would get irritated. My sensors were always failing or falling off. And eventually I was like, you know what? I do too much. I'd rather just kind of be off the pump, and especially doing Krav. I don't even wear a sensor because if you get put in an arm bar and you have the sensor on your arm and somebody just goes like that, your sensor's gone.
Yeah.
And those things aren't cheap.
No.
So I just check like 8 to 10 times a day, and I do Tajeo at night.
Okay.
It's do you know have you messed with Tajeo at
I
all?
have. I tried it after I got here. It was like 3 months in, and I was like, maybe I'll try Tujeo. But it didn't work for me. Maybe I just didn't give it long enough.
So the when I was on Lantis, I used to have to do a shot in the morning and a shot at night. And when Tajeo came out, they said it was just slower. I guess digesting would be the word
Okay.
for it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that it seems to keep me stable, like perfect. So when I try a new diabetes technique or dose or something, what I'll do is I'll fast the whole day.
Hmm.
I'll give my long acting insulin and then just fast the whole next day. And as long as my blood sugars are normal, then I know, okay, this is the long lasting dose I need to be on. And then I'll start eating again the next day or make the adjustments as necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of that method, and I was actually thinking about trying that because my pump broke after I arrived here, so I've been back on injections.
That's so awful.
Yeah, it was one thing after another because it was like my pump broke and then my transmitter failed, and then getting stuff shipped here isn't easy. So
Yeah. And then COVID.
yeah, and then it was nuts. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a stressful couple weeks.
Have you
But
have you taken any like extra precautions because of COVID, or what do you think? Like, how are you dealing with it all?
well, it's so isolating where I am. Like,
Mm.
I don't even know what the population is, but I'm on the Nicoya Peninsula, so it's such a small town, and I don't even hear man-made noises at night or in the morning. Like, it's just so isolated.
Yeah.
But there is a small town, and everyone has to wear masks. So when I do go to the
Okay.
grocery store, I just wear a mask and make sure I wash my hands.
Yeah. So
But
you're not like super worried about it, or
no, I mean, I don't I haven't been put in the situation yet where a friend has wanted to hang out because I don't really know many people here.
yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
yeah,
Poor
so
Tasha.
I know I've just been hanging out with the family.
Yeah.
But so I don't know how I'll feel because I know everyone's like we've just been super careful and we haven't really been going out that much to eat or anything even. Like we'll just
Yeah.
kind of make food here.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it because I feel like it's definitely a thing. My dad
Yeah.
thinks, I mean, I don't think he thinks it's a conspiracy, but he definitely has an idea that like there's some
Yeah.
that we shouldn't be as worried as, some people are. And I don't want to
Yeah.
be too scared because then I'm just going to be not going anywhere, like that would just be pointless.
And then it's almost like you almost will it upon
Yes.
yourself. So if you're
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
scared, it's like you're probably gonna get it.
Exactly. I feel that way too. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like the fine line between just living your life and then being careful, but not, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when you come back, it's California is like way different than Florida, so I don't know how it's gonna be there. But that's pretty much what I do. Like I'm still going to Krav. I'm still doing my usual routine. I'm just trying to use common sense, and I wear a mask in the stores and at work, and when I see people out in the field. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not too worried about it.
That's good. When you guys are doing Krav, because I heard a lot of jujitsu. I don't know about Florida, but in other places, jujitsu is like they have all these rules and regulations. Do you guys kind of have the same?
Yeah, there's some interesting ones. So there's like it's funny because we're not allowed to spar. So we put on gloves, headgear, shin guards, and we usually spar at least once a month. But we're allowed to roll. So we're allowed to basically be wrapped up with each other in very, very, very close conditions, practicing techniques, but we're not allowed to stand a couple feet away from each other to throw punches and kicks.
That is
Um,
interesting.
it's stupid.
So, but you guys don't have to wear masks while you're rolling around on the floor, do you?
No,
Okay.
no, no,
Huh.
definitely not. I think I don't know what the requirements are for some of the jujitsu gyms in other states, but I would think they're shut down. Either that or I know California, like it's huge in MMA, So I know a lot of the pros have pretty much just be like, listen, the gym is shut down to any outsiders. Like it's just these people here, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. I don't, yeah, I heard, I forget where I heard it in Boston. I think they're doing like two people at a time or something and doing temperature checks, which
Hmm.
I don't know if that's even really works to do your
I
temperature.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. I don't know. I
Yeah.
just do what I'm told.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do what I can and do what I'm told.
Yeah. Just wash your hands lots.
Yeah, pretty much.
Has anyone
Which
on
you should do anyways. So,
exactly. Yeah.
what were you gonna say?
Has anyone that you work with have they gotten COVID or has everyone stayed pretty healthy?
Everyone in my district has stayed healthy. I actually had to quarantine for 2 weeks. I had a secondary exposure to it.
Mm.
Nothing happened. I just didn't want to put anybody at risk just in case. So I know a couple other officers have had to quarantine as well, but none of them have tested positive or anything. So
Okay.
that's really good.
Was it like a house or not a house call, but like a something that you had to go to that
No,
exposed
it
you?
was actually with my landlord.
Oh shit.
Her daughter, yeah, I know, right? So her this was we were in the middle. So here's the crazy thing: we were living in another house. The COVID thing happens, and we had people lined up to help us move. And that week, our landlady, who we had met with the night before, found out her daughter tested positive for COVID, and she was like at her house, gave her a hug, all kinds of stuff. And I was like, oh, so you might have it. So my wife, she's 5'3", 110 pounds. We had all these friends lined up. We had to move everything ourselves
Oh
in
my
our
god.
in our little horse trailer. So like we couldn't even go rent a moving van because we didn't want to possibly expose anybody. So we just made a bunch of trips back and forth to the farm, and we got it done, man. And she went in beast mode and
Yeah.
helped me lift stuff out of the house. But yeah, it
That's
sucked. It was that was
exhausting.
not fun.
No. How
But
many months ago was that?
that was in April when I had
Okay.
to quarantine. So yeah.
So yeah, it's been a bit. That's
Hmm.
nuts. I wonder, like, what do you how when do you think this thing's gonna be back to normal? Like,
Oh, well, and I don't know if the word normal is so subjective.
yeah.
So people keep saying, oh, we wanted to go back to normal, but it might not. There might be a new normal. I think there's definitely going to be a lot of good things that come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that families are connecting more. I'm hoping that jobs are realizing like, hey, there's a lot of work that can just be done at home,
Yeah.
and people can spend time with their kids, and people won't have to pay as much for childcare, and um, maybe people will be cooking more and like
Mm-hmm.
actually eating real food.
Yeah.
I feel terrible for the restaurants, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
hopefully people are looking at this and thinking some good things will come out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, I'm sure for a lot of people it
Hmm.
will. Hopefully.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
do you like watch what you eat with your work? Do you try to?
A pretty strict diet. I'm just coming off that vacation like I told
Oh
you
yeah, how
about,
was that?
so
Where did
I
you guys
think
go?
it was awesome. We went to Myrtle Beach, met with her family there. They've been going pretty much her whole life, and so now I just go with them as well. And it's super laid back, but I ate and drank my fill,
Yeah.
and I think my blood sugar is still recovering
Yeah.
from it all. So I say every year, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna behave myself. No, I end up going a
Yeah.
little bit crazy. But yeah, it was a great time.
Is that in
So
Florida?
no, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, but as far as my usual diet, my wife and I cut out gluten about 2 years ago. That's done a lot, but I'm pretty strict with what I eat. I try to do just protein and oats in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
like a half cup of oats, 3 eggs, Greek yogurt with some blueberries, protein shake um, at like 10 o'clock. Lunch is usually the leftovers from what I cooked the night before. So usually chicken and rice, some kind of protein, some kind of starch, just like that. But it's a healthy starch.
Yeah.
And then dinner is the same kind of deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, we keep it pretty strict.
Yeah, that's good. That's kind of, I mean, I feel like probably, well, maybe I can't speak for everyone, but I'm like every person who has type 1, it's like you're just so much more focused on the things that you're fueling your body with for the majority, right?
You have to be. And I know there's some of my friends that are type ones that, they think just because they have a pump or something like that, they can really eat whatever they want. And they'll, the biggest problem I see is when people gorge themselves on anything. Like, say you have too much steak, your blood sugar is going to be 300 in a couple hours, bro.
Yeah.
Say you have, like, rather than having 2 pieces of pizza, you have 8. Like, yeah, it's going to be a disaster. You're not going to be able to figure this one out. Like,
Yeah.
don't gorge on anything, no matter what it is, unless it's like lettuce.
Yeah. Or,
Which, who wants to gorge on lettuce? That would
No.
suck.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. Food and dieting is definitely the biggest part, I feel like, to managing your blood sugars successfully.
Yeah.
There's something I wanted to get into, speaking of that, because I've always been in pretty decent shape. But when I had to get the federal job, I had to go through extensive testing. And I knew a couple other people that got hired at the same time as me, and I love them to death. But overweight, out of shape, definitely not doing what they're supposed to do with their lives, but they didn't have diabetes. So they did the medical check. And this is, we all find out we get hired. We're all happy. We get the medical check, and I pass with flying colors, other than they're like, you're going to have to do some additional testing because of your diabetes, but we think you'll be okay. The other people didn't have to do any additional testing at all, and they got a start date. I was like, okay, well, I'll wait to see what I have to do. So just to get the job with the feds in a law enforcement position, I had to log every single blood sugar for 30 days and then turn in the meter that I checked my blood sugar with to give to a doctor in Georgia that I've never met before to tell them if I'm healthy or not. I had to do an eye exam. I had to do an EKG treadmill test. I was so mad that they made me do it because, like, I'm in shape. Like, I don't need to do this.
Yeah.
I went there and the doc was like, okay, we have to get your heart rate up to a certain rate. And I was like, let's fucking go. So I'm on this treadmill and he's like, how are you feeling? I'm like, good. And I'm in dress shoes. I'm running on this thing. And eventually the treadmill just shuts down. And he's like, that's interesting. I was like, what? He's like, well, we couldn't get your heart rate up fast enough. And that was as fast as the treadmill goes, and it just stopped. So I'd say your heart's in pretty good condition.
Oh my God.
So there was that. And then they wanted me to do a neurological exam because I had a couple seizures when I was younger and not really taking care of myself. But my endocrinologist stepped up and was like, no, he doesn't need a neurological exam. They were hypoglycemic related seizures, so he's good. And then I had to do like the vibration test with all my appendages to make sure I could feel everything with a doctor I didn't know. So it was just a lot of extra testing, and I was paying for all this out of pocket, and I ended up starting like 5 months after everybody else.
That's insane.
And I could have ran circles around some of these people.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it was super annoying, but it's just really cool to be able to say, like, yeah, I made it. And I take such good care of myself, and anybody can do it too. But if you want to get to this kind of position in law enforcement, like, you really have to be on your shit. So
what would you like tell someone who's like, yeah, like that's my goal, like they really want to, but maybe they feel like they're limited in some way, or like how would someone prepare for that, right? Like if you had to go back and do it again?
To get a job in law enforcement, if
Yeah,
somebody
like
wanted
to a high level like you are, and you know, like is there anything that they can think of now that like would help prep them for that exam that they're doing?
I would say just to do like a mock trial where hopefully they're logging their sugars anyways. But I would do like a mock 30-day trial and then actually look at it and be like, okay, am I all over the place? If a doctor looked at my blood sugars and would they want to hire me?
Yeah.
You're going to have to look hireable. And there's going to be times where, you have to turn that meter in. So they're going to see some lows, they're going to see some highs. It just kind of is what it is. But you have to be super strict, especially for that 30 days when you're doing it with your diet and your exercise and your perfect routine. I basically ate the same things for 30 days
Yeah, I was
and
gonna
did the same
ask you.
thing every day just to make sure I was good.
What did you eat?
Oh
Do you
man.
remember?
It was just like bland. I did a lot of chicken salads.
Okay.
I remember like no dressing, a lot of chicken salads, and that was just for the 30 days because like I didn't want them to see anything weird on there. I was super paranoid. I'm like, I don't know what their threshold is
Yeah,
for
I was
what's healthy
yeah.
and what's not as a type one because most people don't really know. So I was like, I gotta try to do this as best as I can. So there's only I know a couple diabetics in the system, but they got it actually after they had the job, which is rare. They got it as adults, but there was only one other one that I met at the Federal Academy for firearm instructor training. And I saw him with a pump and I was like, bro, we got super excited because we didn't know like another one of us existed in the
Yeah.
federal system.
Isn't
So we
that
were talking about like all the extra testing we had to do and he had to do all the same stuff. So
That isn't that
yeah.
crazy when you see someone in the work environment or just like, even at the gym and they have type 1, it's like you're
Oh
meeting
yeah.
like an old friend. It's so
Oh yeah,
exciting.
yeah. You don't even have to know each other. Like I saw a girl at Myrtle Beach and she had an Omnipod on and I was like, "What's up, Omnipod?"
Yeah.
And she got all excited.
It's so
My
fun.
wife's like, "You're so weird."
Yeah. I know when I was in California, it was like one of the last times I went to the gym. I don't even know if my gym will be standing when I go back, but
Yeah.
there was this guy that came up to me and he's like, "Hey, is that a Dexcom on your arm?" And then it just like blossomed into this conversation that was so
hmm
fun.
Yeah, it's always so great
Yeah.
to see type ones. Did you ever do like a diabetes camp
I
as a kid
did.
or anything?
Yes, I
Yeah.
did. It was on the Sunshine Coast in British Columbia when I think I was like
Okay.
11 or 12.
And how was that for you?
I didn't really enjoy it. I think because they had such a structure of like, all right, this is what you're going to do in the morning, this is what you're going to eat, and then you're going to go kayaking, and then you're going to eat this.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want, like, I just want to do my own thing.
Little Miss Homeschool wasn't having
No, yeah. But
it.
I'm glad I did it for the experience because I did meet a
Yeah.
lot of other people with type 1 when I didn't really know anyone. So,
Yeah, I went for years.
did
I
you?
went, yeah, year after year after year. I loved it because it was just so nice to be around other people that actually get it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Are you still
yeah,
in
that
contact?
was super helpful for me.
Yeah. Are you still in contact with people from camp?
I am. I'm
No.
actually going on I do a lot of biking, cycling, and I'm meeting with guy that I was a camp counselor with. He's a type 1. We're meeting up in Asheville, North Carolina to do some biking next
So
weekend.
cool.
So,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
still keep in touch with some people.
Yeah. That's so cool. So because you have a
hmm
really active lifestyle, right? Like you're
I do.
biking all the time, you're training.
Yeah, I've lifted since I was 17, and that's just something that's like a part of me.
Hmm.
I have to hit the gym, and if I don't, I turn into a monster. You don't want to
Yeah.
be around me. So like that's my number one go-to. Running is huge for me. I ran my first marathon last December.
Wow.
Training for that was a beast with diabetes. But there's some diet type ones out there running ultras now.
Uh-huh. I haven't
Those are
heard of
like
that.
50, 100-mile races.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was cool. I was actually able to reach out to one of them. Ross Baker is his name,
Hmm.
and now we're friends on Instagram, and we talk all the time, like just different running stuff. But I digress. But yeah, I do a ton of running, ton of cycling, lots of lifting, Krav. Um, I started swimming because I've been dealing with plantar fasciitis a little bit, so my
Mm,
running is down. So
yeah.
I was like, well, I might as well swim, and I'm horrible at it. It's so bad, but yeah, I try to do everything I can to stay as active as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you found that, like, because all of those things are so different, right, in terms of your blood sugar management? So, did it take you a while to like figure out what your blood sugar was going to do for swimming versus like running versus
Yeah, for
weightlifting?
sure. Running in particular. When I was training for my marathon, I was able to figure out how to fuel properly because you have to eat during the marathon or have those gel packets for energy. So the whole time I was training, usually around like mile 8, my blood sugars would start to drop. So I'd eat a banana or do something.
Hmm.
And that's what I was expecting for the marathon. But marathon day was there. I showed up, and I guess my adrenaline was pumping more than expected. So by the half 13.1, my blood sugar was still 220. And I was like, well, I can't eat anything, so looks like I'm running the rest of the race on no fuel.
Oh, yeah.
So like mile 19, I crashed pretty hard. But yeah, sucked it up and finished it. And the only thing I had the whole time was just one goo packet.
Wow.
And that was like my blood sugar got to 114 at mile 19 where I was starting to crash. And I was like, give me that goo packet. It kicked in after like another mile and I was good to go.
Wow. That's quite an accomplishment. Like, congrats on
Yeah,
that.
it was fun for sure.
Yeah.
It was,
Because
I felt pretty happy.
for people who are into running and stuff, like, what do you say for, like, what's a tip that you'd give them? Because I know a lot of, I don't personally know, but I've heard of so many people that are into running, and they're always asking me, but I don't run, you know?
Okay. So it
So,
depends on your style. If you're just trying to run, say you just want to run a mile and you want to run it as fast as you can, that's going to be a lot like weightlifting, actually, because you're running as fast as you can. You're kicking in that flight or fight response by going as fast as you can, and there's most likely going to be some adrenaline involved. So it might spike your blood sugar up. But say you just want to go out and run like a casual 3 miles. I'll always check beforehand. Um, if I'm at a normal level, I'll usually eat a granola bar or something and try to raise it up, because if I'm just running, say, like a 9-minute mile pace, which isn't super fast, it's probably not going to kick up my adrenaline. Like my blood sugars will drop pretty quick.
mhm.
So I'll actually run with my meter in my pocket and stop at like mile 6 and check it real quick, and then go from there. Because like I said, the sensors, they don't work out for my
Yeah.
lifestyle. But
Can, can you feel your blood sugar dropping in the middle
oh
of the race?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, for sure.
that's good.
Yeah, but like in a marathon setting, you don't know what's happening to your body because you're just so miserable
Mm,
by like mile 14. So I was checking it like once every 3 miles just to make sure I was good, because your body's so confused at that point. So you just have to do a little bit of extra work if you want to go those extra miles.
yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cycling, it almost always drops my blood sugar. It never raises it. So I'm just about every hour I'm eating either an apple or banana or granola bar, and then if I go another hour, eating more food, and
So
try to keep my blood sugar around like 130.
yeah, so you bring like a bunch of stuff with you.
I have this big ass bag on my bike.
Yeah.
Everybody has this like nice lean bike, and they have their little bottle of water. I have like 2 bottles of water, this big ass bag, my backpack on, and
Yeah,
yeah, but you got to do what you got to do.
exactly. Would you carry your meters and stuff in when you're working?
So I can actually show you what I have on now. They're like tactical pants,
Okay.
just cargo pants. I
Yeah.
don't know if you can see them there,
Yeah, I can see.
but
So,
I keep my meter in my left cargo pocket.
yeah.
I have 2 phones, on my personal one, my work phone, and the other one, and my credentials in my back pocket. I have the Rely on glucose shots
Mm-hmm.
in my upper pocket.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll keep like a tube of glucose tablets in the pocket where a clip for, or a magazine or a clip for like an assault rifle or a pistol would go.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
usually put glucose tablets in there. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I'm like a tactical diabetic for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, you need those pockets.
Yeah, for sure. And then when I'm out and about, I definitely rock a fanny pack. I have
Yeah.
no shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do,
So
do you think, okay, I've been hearing this from so many different people where they're like, man, with everything happening in the world, like, who's going to want to join the law enforcement at this point? And I keep hearing that. Have you heard that?
yeah, definitely. There's a lot of hate being thrown around, but I think special people rise up
Yeah.
to meet those challenges. And a friend reached out to me that was interested in joining law enforcement, and just simply because this is all happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I think too, because there's so these different divides. What I'm hoping is the far right, or whatever you want to call them. I hope they aren't the ones trying to join,
Yeah.
because I don't want them to join. I don't want the people that put on the badge and think they're tough or show up to these rallies or protests. You know, the guys that show up with like the AKs, or they're just open carrying. Like, I don't want those douchebags joining law enforcement.
No.
I want people with good heads on their shoulders that are willing to put in the extra hours training and are passionate about helping people.
Yeah.
Yes, protecting the community is the number one priority in anything in law enforcement, but you have to actually care about the people that you're serving. So my number one priority is the community, but my heart is with the people that I serve.
Yeah.
So if you're a police officer and you don't know the people in the community, so for example, you know, me, white officer, if I'd be working in a primary Black community, but I don't spend any time learning about African American culture, what am I doing? There's situations where, you know, people might be yelling at each other on the street, and where I grew up, that's like, oh my gosh, something's about to go down. But in another culture, they're just having a good time. So yeah, I really think the right people will rise up and meet the challenge. And that's the hope. But agencies too, they have to vet people a lot more. And with social media, that'll vet people pretty quickly, because they'll be able to comb through some of that a little bit more now. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I hope things change for the best, though.
I hope
for
so
sure.
too. Yeah. It's crazy. This is so weird, but they're here in Costa Rica. They have these army ants. So it's like these ants that will cover the walls, and they're only like
okay.
they'll come like at random times, and then they'll cover the wall. They're like cleaning, and then but they're like all over the place, and then they'll eventually like find order, and then it's like one line of army ants, but it like takes them a bit to like get used to like whatever they're doing, or you know, it's crazy, but it's like there's always order after chaos kind of thing is what I think about it. But
I
it's
like
just
that.
that's
the
what
army
it reminds.
ant analogy.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
That.
But did you have to, like, when you were training and everything, did you have to take it upon yourself to like learn about because you were working with the Crips and the Bloods, right? And so did you have to take it upon yourself to know that culture, or were there people that like?
I had mentors.
Okay.
So for the first 3 years where I was in that area was with the Salvation Army. I genuinely loved the kids that I was working with and got to know them to a certain degree. But then when I started for the SIS program, it was called the Community Intensive Supervision Program. I was the only white guy that, me and one other person, we were the only two white people. And the rest were African American workers. So, and most of them had grown up like in the hood, like they knew how to talk to these kids. And some of them are my best friends to this day, but I just watched them and really imitated exactly what they did and hung out with them after work and immersed myself in their culture, rather than trying to bring anything that I had, because what did I have? You know, growing up in white suburbia, all I had was a passion and a care and a love and a desire to help promote this change. But without, you know, I'll just say the names: Dante Green, Devon Hawkins, Omar Grissom, Josh Smith, some of those guys. There's no way I'd be where I'm at now. And so just culturally aware and able to meet so many different cultures where they're at.
Yeah, that's important. So people probably just having that mentorship would be beneficial. I mean, I guess everyone needs that, no matter what career you're going into.
Yeah, and they were definitely unofficial mentors. Like we all got hired together at the same time because this was a brand new center in the most dangerous area in the city. And so yeah, it was like unofficial mentors, getting to know people and just stepping out of my comfort zone even more to become a better person.
Yeah, that's so important. And now look at where you are now.
I know, right? I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss that.
Yeah.
That was probably my favorite job just because of the guys that I got to work with. But I would not be where I am today without that position for
Yeah.
sure.
When you look back, is there anything that you would have done differently, or like just stepping into, because I feel like the way your career unfolded was just so unplanned, but like, do
Yeah,
you feel like now looking back, because you wanted to be a Marine for so long, do you feel like everything kind of happened for you?
I do. I
Yeah.
think um, like I said, I've always been so positive. I think that the I've always believed that there's a bigger plan out there, and that the puzzle pieces are there. You just have to find them and assemble the puzzle.
Hmm.
And that's just kind of what happened. I think maybe there are some people out there guiding me a little bit more than what other people get, but I try to invite that energy,
Yeah.
so I can allow things like that to happen in my life. As far as changing anything, no, I don't.
Mm-mm.
I don't think I would. Um, there was one specific incident. The main thing I wanted to talk to you about, where I kind of had a shift in thinking with my diabetes, and I wish I would have realized the shift sooner. Um, it was my freshman year of college, and I still wasn't really taking great care of myself. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great by any means. And I was just playing a pickup basketball game, and I had to take a break because my blood sugar went low, and then I had to take another break because my blood sugar went low, and then I had to take another break because it went low. And this was all in a span of an hour. And I just remember, I won't say her name, but she looked at me and she's like, you really shouldn't be playing sports or anything. You're sick. And I just remember thinking, like, who the fuck do you think you are, like, to tell me that? But to a degree, she was kind of right. Um, like, I had been told my whole life, well, you can do anything because diabetics, you're not being held back, and you can do everything else that everybody else does. But I wasn't allowing myself to. I was like using my diabetes as this excuse to where, yeah, I'm entitled to believe that I think I can do whatever I want. But am I physically capable of doing everything I want? I couldn't play a basketball game for an hour, um, because I wasn't taking care of myself. So I had this like almost a victim mentality with it, to where, oh, well, society should bend around me, and my needs, rather than me rising up and being like, you know what? I have to be better than the average person because of this diabetes. And that's when I really started viewing diabetes as this awesome thing
Mm-hmm.
that gave me so much control. And it's like, yes, I'm going to work my ass off to do better than you, and I have diabetes. Um, so it kind of just gave me that drive. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I've always, from that point on, I always felt like I was a leader wherever I was, constantly exceeding expectations. Um, Finished top of my class at the Federal Academy. Got the Officer Safety Award, which is the only award that the instructors actually pick, pretty much who the best officer was when it all comes to tactics and safety, and classroom stuff. So yeah, I feel like because of diabetes, I'm enabled to be a better person.
That's so awesome. And that's so powerful too, because I feel like so many people in that position would, it's like, it's hard to like rise above the negative, right? Like when someone says
Hmm.
something like that.
Yeah.
And then it's such an interesting perspective to look at it, cuz like I feel like in my life people would always say like you can't do this cuz you have diabetes. So it was
Hmm.
always that motivating force of like, no, I'm going to prove them that I can. But yours is
Yeah,
like the
and do it
same but
better.
different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
So yeah, without it, I wonder what I'd be. I don't think I'd be the man I am today. That's for sure. I might be just another dude stuck on my Facebook feed, sitting at home with a belly, drinking beer. I
yeah.
really don't know. But I wouldn't take back, not having. It'd be great not to have it.
Yeah.
But the life that I have now, I wouldn't give up diabetes to see what it would be like without it, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Do you feel like diabetes has kind of been like not empowered, but helped you with your career in a way? Like just being the best at your job that you can do? Has it kind of been,
Yeah, I think so. And with anything,
yeah,
it's like you have a chip on your shoulder, and that's just how I view it. Like when I'm at Krav, like I want to be the best one there. So like, let's figure out how I can do that. If I'm lifting with somebody, it's like, okay, how can I lift more weight than this guy, or how can I do more reps? And um, I don't know if maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what gave me the drive to want to be the best. And I'm not trying to say that in like a asshole way,
yeah,
because I still have a lot of growth and a lot of development and a lot of things I need to do personally before I can actually be the leader that I want to be. But yeah, definitely it gives me that like driving force. Like, yeah, I want to do this.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
What
And
about you?
I feel like it definitely has it's made me more aware of my body, and it's made me more patient. Like it's taught me a lot of skills that I don't think I would have otherwise.
Mhm.
And I think if I was never diagnosed, I probably wouldn't be as mindful with like the things that I'm eating and exercise and
Yeah.
just, like all of those things that, and I was
Mhm.
thinking about the other day how it's like your sleep, your exercise, what you're eating, like everything that we should all be paying attention to. It's like
Mhm.
it affects us on such a deeper level that without being aware of like all these things. And some people will be like, how can you, like you're always like doing, like thinking of things, and I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
but it affects everyone, right? Just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and you have to have your diabetes under that much more control, because if you want to have a good night's sleep,
Hmm.
you have to have good blood sugars, because if you go low, you're going to wake up and then you have to treat it. If your blood sugar is high, I guarantee you're going to be running to the bathroom at some point in the
Yeah.
night. So it's like if that starts right there. Like if your blood sugars aren't good at night, you're screwing up yourself for the next day because you're not sleeping well.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say my nights are always perfect, but they definitely aren't. But
No.
I strive to, have those as much as I can.
Yeah. And that's all we can do, really.
Hmm. I think too, it gives you a lot of discipline,
Yeah.
especially if you're a good, quote unquote, good diabetic. So say you want to do like a 30-day body cleanse, or something that like a normal person, I did that in quotes for people that
Yeah.
aren't watching this,
Yeah.
but like a normal person would be like, I want to do like no caffeine for 30 days. I feel like for me, it's like, oh, okay. Like what's next? Like no problem. I've been watching my food since I was 9.
Yeah.
So you want to take something away for 30 days? Cool, let's do it.
Yeah.
Where other people are like hitting their heads against the wall on day 3, like I hate my life.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah, it does give you a lot more self-awareness. Did
Yeah.
did I see on your social that you tried the carnivore diet?
I did, yeah.
How was that? Because I wanted to
that
ask
was
you about that.
that was an epic fail.
Was
Epic,
it?
epic fail. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So I think I lasted 5 days,
Okay.
and those 5 days I did not go to the
Oh
bathroom
my God. I've
at
heard
all.
that happens.
Well, I listen to Joe Rogan podcasts
Yeah.
all the time, and he's like talking this thing up, and I was like, I'm gonna fucking do it. Like yeah, let's do this. Um, and he said that like he was going to the bathroom like crazy for 2 weeks, and then it just like leveled out. And by day 5, I'm like super bloated. I felt awful. I was like, this cannot be good. Like I need to eat some vegetables or something. So I did, and it was glorious. But
So those 5 days. So I
yeah,
wonder how people do it. Do their bodies just get used to it?
I think
Because,
that it depends on who you are as a person, and like what your ancestors ate, because I know there's still people, like certain sects of people that live, I don't know what's the politically correct term for Eskimo.
I don't
I'm not
know.
really sure, but all they eat is seal. They don't have vegetables up there, they don't have any of that, so that's all they eat. So maybe if your ancestors were primarily meat eaters, then your body would be able to adjust to that.
Hmm.
um, Not me, apparently.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and how are
But
your
I
blood sugar?
noticed,
Probably not very good. Were your blood
yeah, my
sugars?
blood sugar was great.
Were they?
Uh, yeah, because it's always easier for me at least to figure out blood
Mm-hmm.
sugars when you take carbs out of the
Yeah.
situation. So it was pretty simple. I didn't notice too much of a change there.
Okay.
Probably less insulin for
Yeah.
sure, but yeah,
But
I
never
wouldn't
again.
recommend it.
No.
If you want to use the bathroom ever again, don't
Yeah.
do carnivore.
And feel like if you want to feel like shit.
Yeah, yeah, and by not feel like shit by not shitting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, so what's next? What's coming up for you? Like in the next little while, what's next? I know we should probably wrap it up, but I want to make sure that we covered everything
I
and that
guess we've been talking for over an hour
I know
already.
it goes
That's
by
crazy.
so fast. I'm like, I know you're
Yeah,
busy. Um,
that's good. What is next? I'm really focusing on Krav a lot.
yeah.
The main goal is to get my black belt. I'm about halfway through now. I'm a green belt second degree. Because I just enjoy it really much, and I've always wanted to have a black belt in something.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and Krav is super convenient. It's close to my house, so I'm that's the one thing. Professionally, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Um, I so the great thing about Ocala is it's small, um, and it's super laid back. Cost of living is cheap, but the downside is also that it's small. So I'm in a very small office.
Hmm.
Not a lot of room for. There's not a lot of positions available if you want to kind of work your way up the chain in the federal system. So I definitely have aspirations of doing that. Um, so I might be moving sometime. Not, I don't want to say the near future, but
Yeah.
it's probably going to happen at some point. I'm going to have to move if I want to keep growing in
Would
this career.
would you have to move to a city to have?
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah, probably. Um, Either Orlando or Tampa. If I wanted to stay in the Middle District of Florida, um, I would have to move to a bigger city in like either Jacksonville, Orlando, or Tampa,
Yeah.
which it has its pros and cons, just like anything else.
Yeah.
But long term, my wife and I would really like to have our own business someday. And she has her own business now. She's a mobile dog groomer. She comes from a family of business owners,
That's awesome.
and she definitely inspires me on a daily basis because she's got way bigger balls than I do to be able to go out and do something like that. But I'd really like to. Have you ever done a float tank?
No, but I've heard Joe Rogan talks about it. So I've thought about trying it and my boyfriend I think tried it a long time ago.
You need to
So,
do it.
okay.
It was like a groundbreaking
Did
experience
it
for
so
me.
what's it it didn't make you feel like claustrophobic or
I'm not a very
okay.
claustrophobic person to begin with, but my wife is.
Mhm.
It took her it was like an hour long session. It took her like 15 minutes, she said, to get like comfortable. Where me, I got in that thing, I
Yeah.
was comfortable from the get. And the water's room temperature, so like or
Okay.
your body temperature.
Yeah.
And you float, you can't hear anything, you can't see anything. Your brain does some funny things. Um, I loved it so much. Like I haven't done it again since, but I could definitely see myself doing like some kind of wellness center where I'm either like I have float tanks.
Mhm.
I might be able to teach like self defense to the general population, like civilians and law enforcement, because I
Mhm.
really have a passion for it. My wife's into like super into crystals and like the hippy dippy stuff.
Yeah. Like
That's
this
why I know
thing.
about Buddha and Ganesh and all your little
Yeah.
all your little things over there. But I think she'd be really good at like selling that stuff. And I don't know. I'd like to spend more time with her. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's either law enforcement for a couple more years and keep working my way up because I love that, or like trying to do my own thing with her. And I'm, all over the place. But either way, goal driven. I
Yeah.
want to achieve something else. But
That's
what
exciting.
about what about you?
So I've been now that I've been in Costa Rica for as long as I have been, I'm starting to realize I'm just kind of done with the city. Like California was exciting when I was 24 and I moved there. But now I'm like at some point I want to have a family and I would love to homeschool my kids and
Mhm.
just kind of live somewhere where I can teach them like real life skills. So somewhere in nature. So
So
just
they're grounded.
yeah, so it's kind of,
Yeah.
and then I don't know if I would do like stay in. in an environment like that forever. You know, I'd probably want to move somewhere because I grew up in a really small town, so I don't know if that's ideal for people when they're teenagers.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I'll just see like how things unfold. But my boy, like I'm gonna be going back to California, and then my boyfriend he works in like audio. He's an audio engineer,
Okay.
so he's thinking about and possibly letting go of his. He's been doing that for years, so he could
Hmm.
kind of do that on his own too.
Hmm.
But we're thinking about maybe just working together. So kind of
Hmm.
like, you know, what you and your wife are maybe in the
Yeah.
future, and kind of just because I would love to, you know, obviously be able to have a business where I can be making money and then be raising kids at home.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll just see what happens. We'll probably leave LA, I think. Like once I get back there, I feel
Yeah.
like me going back is going to be to tie up loose ends and just, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. Like I have these ideas, but then I'm
Yeah.
like, however things unfold, I'm just gonna, it's like one of those things of like letting go of my attachment to like what I want and then
Yeah.
just kind of being like, all right, like this is my goal, but like however it unfolds, I'm just gonna be okay with it.
Yeah. Man,
So,
I could imagine going back to LA after spending so much time in
uh,
Costa Rica and just feeling kind of like gross.
yeah. Yeah, and then it's
Is
like
it
the
like
air
being around the beach or
quality.
something?
Yeah.
What's that?
The air quality in Los Angeles and with
Yeah.
the fires too. I'm leaving this like peaceful place in the
Mm.
jungle, but
Yeah.
I can't stay here forever and like my apartment's in LA and you know.
Yeah. You have to
So,
go back
and
at
my
some point.
boyfriend's there.
Yeah. Has he come to visit you at all,
So
or is that?
no, so we came on a vacation together in February. And the whole plan
Okay.
was he was gonna like I was gonna stay a couple weeks longer than him to hang out with my mom.
Okay, that's
So
why I thought
yeah,
originally that you were just there on vacation. Okay.
yeah. And so then he left, and then the borders things were starting to happen. It was in March, like things were like February was fine, no worries. But then March, like airlines were starting to shut down, and we were like, okay, do you just fly home right now? And then my flight was March 29th, and we're both like, it's probably gonna be fine. Like just keep your original flight, and then the border shut down. So they weren't letting any US citizens in, and then my flight kept getting canceled. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just how it happened.
that's so wild.
I
But
know.
at least you got to spend so much time there. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's been really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, definitely I will remember this time for a long time, forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. Well,
Well, do you have any other questions for
I
me or
don't think, is
anything?
there anything that I didn't ask you that you feel like would be,
Not in particular.
no.
I think we covered a lot of stuff for
Yeah.
sure. I
And I
probably went
think,
off down some rabbit holes.
yeah, probably. But
But
overall, like you're so inspiring. I think that when people listen, when they tune in, it's going to be really inspiring just to hear your story and like what you were doing and where you are now and just all of the things
yeah.
in between. So I'm really glad that we were able to connect.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. I appreciate you doing this.
yeah.
And for anybody that does want to try to reach out to me, I definitely invite that. So I only have Instagram for social media. And I just got off Facebook like a month ago. Best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
But my account's private because of what I do. But you can. I think you'll attach the
I'll link
link
to
or
it.
whatever.
Yeah.
They can definitely anybody can send me a private message, ask me any questions, be friends after that, as long as I know you're not someone trying to, figure out where I live and kill me because of
Yeah.
what I do for a living. But
Do you
yeah, what's that?
do you get death threats by people?
It's happened. I've only gotten one, and that was actually when I was doing juvenile probation. It wasn't super serious, but there has definitely been some very dangerous, because I work at the federal level now. That's pretty much like the top of the top, usually most dangerous. There's been some officers that have been, they're authorized to carry their duty firearm 24 hours a day, like even if they go to the grocery store, because they've gotten death threats, and U.S. Marshals escorting them everywhere they go for a certain period of time. Because you figure, we work with some guys that, were put in jail in the 80s in the
Mm-hmm.
Italian mob and are just now getting out, and it's some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I've sat down with guys where like they seem totally normal, and I'm like, so I see your offense was this. Do you have any other violent offenses or anything? And they're like, oh yeah, I killed one of my witnesses. And you're sitting there in the same room, and you're like, you're trying to keep a normal face, and you're like, oh,
You're like, shit.
I got you.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
That's I bet how do you stay so grounded when it like cuz that I mean, that would freak me out, but I can't watch scary movies. So
I've always
but like
been,
how do you stay so
man,
grounded and
I've always been the type of person that kind of rushes towards things like that. Um, like if I'm somewhere high, like a building, it's definitely not suicidal, but like I want to jump off of it. Like I want to do like these, I guess it's an adrenaline thing.
yeah.
I don't know if that relates completely to this job, but like I think working in the circumstances that I've had for such a long time, you're definitely desensitized to things like that. And yeah, it's just there's a lot of humor with coworkers that goes into it, and it's just kind of like, it's a normal thing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but
that's
I guess
good.
that's how I deal with it. You just a lot of experience.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of experience, a lot of training.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, if you and your wife, I mean, I don't know if I'll be in LA, but even if we're in Costa Rica, like and you and your wife want to come on a holiday wherever we are, I mean, it would be
Definitely.
nice to connect. Or if we come to Florida, I'll let you know.
Yeah, come to Florida.
Yeah, I've never been there, but the beaches look beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a pretty crazy state. I was joking. Don't really
Okay, okay.
don't move come to Florida. Don't move to Florida.
Yeah, come to visit.
It's too crazy. But yeah, I hope you figure everything out. But
Yeah.
it was really good talking to you.
Yeah, you too. And thank you so much for your time.
Sure thing.
Okay, take care.
Uh,
Bye.
Bye.